Alright, here we go. Round 6 at Strange Ranch with Mideast Hare Scramble Series. I started out on the wide side of this start because the inside line looked so greasy, and it paid off for me because I ended up in 4th into the start, and then I had walked this start beforehand to see if there were any like hotlines or anything I could take advantage of to get ahead. And you jump over this middle section and you take a right here, you can immediately get ahead of some people. It doesn't cut the track, but it's just a good alternate line that put me in first for the majority of the first lap. You'd come out of the woods and you into these field sections, and then just back into the woods there was like these little field connectors, and I was still in the lead here and first into the woods. It was a really good feeling because I haven't led a race yet. There was a lot of mud at this race. There's been a lot of mud lately, and it had rained really hard like 2 days before this race, and we knew it was going to be spotty with the mud, and then I'm just glad it wasn't the whole thing, because that last race where it was 2 miles of mud was miserable, and I'll deal with 100 yards of mud at a spot, and that's what, when you come into the woods here, there was a lot of mud. It was just deep and rutted and rooty mud for, it was a good ways, but it wasn't anywhere near 2 miles, and it wasn't unmanageable. And honestly, I complain about the mud because it's not something I generally ride, but doing these races the way that we have been and with so much mud lately, it's making me a better rider, and I'm not scared off by the mud. I just know that you have to attack it like every other obstacle. You just got to be committed to what you're going to do and not aim for the big mud holes. And I say mud holes, I mean like the pits that you're going to get stuck in. Come back out of the woods into a connector section. I check my 6 because I'm not sure if I'm going to be passed immediately like I'm used to be, so I'm still leading. This course had a lot of good variation in terrain, so you came into a section where there was mud, and then you'd come out into a section that was just wide open trails. So there's a good mix of terrain in this track. So there was some wide open field sections, mud, there was sand, there were these wide open wood sections like this, and there were some really tight like bar banging woods that was really good, and I really enjoyed that stuff. This section proved to be pretty difficult later on in the race. It was just a mud hole, and then if you've ever raced or you're used to these kind of tracks, you know that these mud holes just get wider and wider and wider, especially the really bad ones, because people get stuck in them and they kind of dig a hole, and it makes it worse and worse and worse when multiple, a couple hundred bikes go through the same area. At this point, I'm still in the lead of the race. I'm not getting stuck in some bottleneck, so I decided to do an alternate line, and I wasn't sure. I was like, it's either going to work out for me, or I'm going to get stuck for the rest of the race, and it proved out to be not that bad. So I made it through, got around. I think there were 3 guys stuck there, and then Robert Creel pops out of the woods right here and takes off. Me and him go back and forth for a little bit. The roots in the terrain kind of beat the track up a little bit, so it wasn't. You got good ruts in place where you could kind of track through a section, but there were some sections where it just got chopped up, and everything was so loose that it would just shift around, and it made for an interesting way to negotiate the track because you had to be kind of dynamic with what line you were going to take. And the mix of terrain was pretty evident in a place like this, where it goes from being kind of squishy, loamy dirt where you can get really good traction and make good speed, and it had pretty established ruts in this section, even though those shifted a little more, and then it just shifted into sand, and it was this weird short section of sand, but there's multiple of these in the course, so it was just a nice change. It's a nice little hill climb into a little field connector section. This field was really rough. It was like whooped out or had been dug up before, so it was kind of choppy. This is one of the tighter wood sections. You come across these dragonback rollers, and there's a lot of, like everywhere else in this course, there are a lot of roots, so it was kind of slick in these single lines, but it was just, as long as you kept your front wheel straight, you could keep traction down and keep power on, you just kept moving forward. Me and this guy, I'm not sure who he was, we rode for a little bit together, and he was pretty quick, and I would just end up really tight on him, and I don't like doing that because I've got a bad habit of not being able to stop quick enough, and so I don't really want to hurt somebody, so I tend to back off a little bit, which means that the people that are behind me, because I'm still leading, can catch up. So before, when I had the chance, I should have stuck with that pass position and just pushed past him and gotten away, and I didn't. I just hung out behind him for a little while, and we rode. He kept a good pace. It was a lot of fun. It's just I was moving a little faster than he was, and you'll see up here after we moved through a little bit, he waves me past. I was going to try and hotline him. Just I'm not the best yet. Like I said before, that I'm still trying to, figure out my technique in a hotline. So if I have to push past somebody like that, I really just need to commit to blowing through some underbrush and stuff and getting past somebody. We meet up with another rider. The guy in front of me passes him. I pass this next rider. He checks over his shoulder here in a second, and then he waves me past. It was a good pace, but it's just I walk away from him, so it wasn't that. It was a good area to pass, and I'm glad we got past him. This section was one of the tighter sections, and it was also this like off camber just on the side of a hill. And I ride a lot of stuff like this on a lot of single track, so this wasn't that tough of a section really for me. But you'll see up here where there's a lot of people that are kind of off the trail. I think the width of the usual mid-east courses, where they are mostly used by the four-wheelers, like these sections weren't touched by the four-wheelers, so it doesn't, or the side-by-side, so it was just bike-only stuff. This stuff kind of catches people off guard, I can tell, for the mid-east stuff, because I think their mid-east tracks generally run a little wider. So off-camber routes with a little bit of leaf litter and mud, it was spelling disaster for a lot of people. This was another one of those hotline passes I should have just stuck with. I could have accelerated a little bit, gotten out in front of him, and then made a clean pass there. But instead, I checked myself and pulled back, and I didn't want to stuff him in. I don't want to stuff him off the hill, but it was just I needed to push past. The track moves along really well here, and then all of a sudden the trail's gone. I don't know where it went, and now looking at the video, I can see it looks like it goes down to the right into that little well, and then back up the hill on the opposite side. But I couldn't see the trail. I was just following this guy in front of me, and then saw the trail again and saw that flag. So I must have missed a flag that pointed down the hill because I just never saw it. This was a longer, probably the longest downhill of the course, and it was like everywhere else, just covered in roots. So it was real slick and downhill. I didn't see anybody crash there, but a lot of people were going pretty slow. There's another sand section. This one was a little longer than the other one and provided a little bit more speed, but it was really nice just for the change of pace because sand reacts differently than any other terrain. And it's just soft and a lot of grip, so it was a lot of fun. I like that they had a little flowy section. This is one of those parts where I should have been more aggressive, and I could have pushed past this guy, and then he finally lets me past. It's just I should have just pushed. I could have made it past him a little quicker, a little more clean. So this is a long, fast section that you come out past the creek, and then you go over there were a couple little bridges that they made, and this was just like a spot you would expect to be really muddy because it was so low and there had been so much moisture, but it really wasn't that bad. It was these sections where they weren't, the places where you would expect it weren't muddy, and then the places where you really wouldn't expect it, like in an open field on the top of a hill, were just filthy and just disgusting. But I'm glad that these sections were here. This kind of got whooped out by the end of the race, but it wasn't very long, it wasn't very bad, so it's just another one of those really nice sections that's just a different piece of terrain that you get to ride, and it makes you a better, more rounded rider if you can negotiate, ride sand loops for a little bit and then jump straight back into mud and roots. And I really enjoyed, if you can't tell, I really enjoyed this course. It was a lot of fun, and I liked the varying terrain, and it played to my strengths, so I did pretty well. You come out of the woods into a fast section. The fast section is like sandy and kind of whoopy, and you're right back into this established woods kind of trail where there's just a lot of roots, and it's very, very slick, and you got to be very careful about your line choice and what your front wheel's doing, because if you're not, you're just going to end up stuck and spinning. And you see a lot of guys later on. I know a couple people got stuck in big mud holes that really like finished the race for them. It's just you're done because you can't get out. If you're buried tank deep in a mud hole and you're by yourself in the woods, you're not really going to get out. And you're gonna mud break stuff, so people will shy away or, you know, ride more conservatively in mud, which I'm not gonna fault you for, because you look at something like this where there's people all over the place and you have to pick these crazy wide lines, just get sprayed with mud. It's getting everywhere, so you just got to be, you know, ready to attack it and be committed to the line you're going to choose, just so you can get through with the least amount of damage. And not just damage to your bike, but damage also to like your lap time and your position on the course. Because up to this point, I was still leading. So this hill caused a lot of problems. It was this weird, rutted, uphill 90-degree turn. This guy just gets off balance and then he falls over. And then Cody McFall here jumps ahead and capitalizes on it. And I can't let that happen. I got to get back by him. This is where I had lost the lead here. I think Chris Hannon had gotten ahead of me too, and Cody had gotten past me. And Cody's faster, like the wider stuff, than I am. So I knew if we were going to get into the woods, I needed to get in there before him, because then I could, if I could get past him in the open stuff, that means I can get into the woods and kind of make some distance, because I know I can walk away. Make some noise at this guy. I'm trying to get him to slide over so I can really get on it, and he's in this tight stuff. And this was some of the tighter, probably the tightest section of woods in this whole course. It was, you know, bar-ish wide and single line. Not a lot of chances for hot lines, not a lot of alternate lines. It was just good single track, which is the stuff that I thrive on. And I can pick up my pace and ride more consistently in this than I can in any of the wide stuff. So I'm glad that somewhere where I needed to make a pass went directly into a section like this, because I could capitalize and it helped my position. See, the rider up here ahead of me is moving pretty well, and that's Chris Hannon, and he's in my class, and we're very, very close in speed. So I knew having him close by, I just needed to pick up my pace a little bit, make some good choices like that line to be able to push through the trees without having to make it, you know, waste time making turns, taking a turn there, and then I can get ahead of him. And I start yelling, trying to push him a little bit. Maybe I can get him to make a mistake, and I can capitalize on it. I did not intend for him to pull over like this. Like I don't want to screen past people in my class, because it feels cheap. And I told him that at the end of the race. I said, "Hey, look, I'm sorry for the first. You know, I yelled and you pulled over, and I don't like that." So this little gully caused a lot of problems in this race. There were 2 times where I came into it. I think Robert Creel crashed there one time, and then these guys were all here. So I come up on this gully, and like I said, I'm not sitting in a bottleneck, and there's 4 guys sitting in the bottom of this hill, and it's going to take forever for them to get out. So I make an executive decision to get creative with my line choice and just drop into this alternate hole in the ground, and get past all those guys and take off again back into the single track. This was a fun little well bowl thing. I don't know why they didn't design it like that, but it was just cool that it was there. It was fun to just drop into it at max speed and accelerate into this gravity well. Faster section of muddy, rooty woods with some, you know, steepish rolling down hills where you drop in, you know, do a little straight section, then back up the other side of the hill. And you can see, just even in this section, how much the terrain changes. It goes from being really muddy and rooty to kind of sandy and loamy to all sand, and then just back into muddy, rooty mess. So it made for a really interesting race, having all that terrain in there. And I'm really glad that this is probably my favorite course so far this year, and we've still got quite a few more rounds to go. So this big root right here that I hit caused a bunch of problems, and you can see this guy was a faster rider, and he just gets catapulted by this thing. He hits it and it bucks his rear wheel really wide, and he just goes flying. This is the final wood section coming up into before scoring, and it was a faster section and had been kind of littered with lines. It seemed like you can go about anywhere that you were comfortable going, and I just took a wide line and stayed on the outside, tried to negotiate the roots in the mud as best I could. It got kind of beat up, but didn't get much more deteriorated than that. So behind me I've got everybody in my class, because I'm still in the lead up to this point, because got past Cody again and gotten past Chris Hannon, and then I make a mistake here, get kind of crossed up. I'm not sure exactly what I did. I just hit something and it pushed me, something I didn't expect. It was a root or some mud, and a spectator comes over and helps me pick my bike up, and there's Chris there, and I get going again. And I'm kicking myself. I'm like, man, I was in the lead and I make some stupid mistakes, but now I'm, back a little bit. I got to push pretty hard to get ahead again. I need to get back up into the front. I don't want to, push back into fifth again if I can help it. And there's Chris right in front of me, and this is coming up into scoring for the first lap. So I missed leading the first lap by seconds, and I don't really kick myself for it, because I finished second in my class and 32nd overall, and there were 14 riders in Vet C. And overall, it was a really good race. It was a lot of fun, a lot of varied terrain, a lot of good riding, a lot of aggression. It was just a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed that race. That's it. See you guys. Peace.